I've really enjoyed my time with the Suzuki DR-Z4S, and I think it's a great mid-sized trail bike that's fun and easy to ride all day long without getting bored or tired, and it will handle almost anything you can throw at it. The structure of this video will be that I'll go through some of my general thoughts about the bike, then I'll show you what I've done to it, and then I'll tell you what I'd changed if I owned it, and also the accessories I'd add to improve it. Then at the end after that, I'll give you my brief pros and cons before finishing up with my final verdict to wrap it all up. This bike is owned by Suzuki UK, and all up, I've completed about 500 miles on it of on and off-road riding, which I think is a decent amount of riding for me to have a well-rounded opinion of it. So who's this bike for? Yeah, I think it does appeal to a wide variety of riders. Suzuki are pitching it as a fun bike, maybe angled towards newer riders, but I've been riding my whole life and I've really enjoyed it. I also do ride enduro bikes and adventure bikes, and I don't mind riding fast off-road, but its dual sport, sort of trail-friendly nature really appeals to the side of me that just likes to be in the moment and take it easy, maybe do a bit of exploring and looking at things as I'm riding around. I like the riding position on the bike, and I find it really comfortable for all-day riding. When you're sat on it, it pitches you sort of upright and in the attack position for off-road riding, which I like and is very familiar to me. On the road, I quite like this position too for visibility. Standing up due to my height, I'm crunched over the bars too much though, and I do need to add risers to bring the bars higher. The bike's really easy to move around on, and I also find the seat really comfortable, aside from heading home, which is always when my bum starts to get sore anyway. I think the foot pegs are wide enough, but they aren't long enough, as in they don't extend out enough for my big feet. Incidentally, Suzuki do offer a lower seat height for the bike, which reduces the seat height if you want it lower. Just one thing on these Suzukis, they've got a quick start, so all you really need to do is just hit that, and away you go, if you're in gear. The engine on this bike is a lot of fun to use. I've seen in the comments to my previous DR-Z4S videos that some people think this machine is basically an old DR-Z400 with some minor revisions. And having read the press release and studied the bike, I can tell you that there have been significant updates everywhere to this bike to bring it right up to date. At first, I did think that this engine might be too stifled by the big exhaust. I don't think it is. It feels torquey enough, and it can pull a slightly higher gear than you think it should be able to when you're lugging the engine around. Here you see me riding behind a Honda CRF 250 rider with an aftermarket exhaust. You can't even hear the DR-Z's exhaust over his exhaust here in the footage. If I owned the bike, I'd keep the stainless steel exhaust and I wouldn't be upgrading it. Yeah, it's big and heavy, but it's super quiet and it looks great to my eye. It's so quiet that you can just sneak around the trails and you don't annoy people. Also easy on your ears for when you're riding around all day too. Doesn't get hot either, at least I've never felt any heat from it when I've been out, but I have been riding in the winter, so just on the heat, the radiator has come on from time to time, but that has been during slow speed work when there's been less air coming through the radiator fins, so that's pretty normal. It's got really good tractable power down low for setting off and riding over technical terrain and keeping the engine going for slow speed work. And the mid-range is decent for pulling a slightly higher gear, as I mentioned, if you can't be bothered changing. It's got 3 riding modes, and I usually kept it in B for trail riding and A when I needed the most power. I didn't use C. I ride a lot of bigger Suzukis, and I do use C when I'm riding in the wet though. That's mainly on road bikes. It's not going to pull your arms out of your sockets in A, but there is a difference between all the modes. On the road, I did use the road traction control settings, but if I was trail riding, I just kept it set to off or gravel, whichever one I was set in at the time. Gravel mode was fine for general trail riding, but I changed to off when it was getting really technical, or I needed to finesse the back wheel to get the most amount of traction as possible.
A, traction control off. Let's go. This is an interesting section. There's a long clay rut, a few rocks, leaves in there. Gets quite rooty, and then there's a road up the top. But I'm just going to have a go at sort of slow speed, sneaking up this, just using the torque of the engine. A really good example of how you can just chug this bike up there. Just turned the bike around, but you can see the wheel slip in there. But I just thought I'd start here because it's quite slippery and I'm in gravel mode. I'll leave it there. We'll go up slow.
Clutch is lovely and light, and it's of a slipper design. So if you get your change wrong on the way down the gearbox, it will slip, so you're not going to lose traction on the back wheel. Yeah, this is pretty common on bikes these days, but it's still a nice feature to have. Yep, this gearbox is only 5-speed, and I have missed 6th. I miss it on the motorway, and I also miss it when I'm just cruising around on the smaller roads too. The engine does rev quite high on the motorway in 5th, and there's not excessive vibration, and I didn't get numbness in my hands though, which is my acid test for how bad that is. So obviously the main disadvantage here is that you're revving the engine higher in 5th gear than you feel you should when you're riding around at speed. Gearbox is a touch notchy on the changes, but it's not a bad notchy, and I definitely prefer notchy over not notchy, so that I know I've changed gears. The gearbox is fairly easy to get into neutral. The bike is on the heavy side, but you don't notice it when you're riding around at a normal pace doing normal things. The first time I actually noticed it was when I was putting it on the paddock stand for the first time. I'm used to putting my enduro bike on this stand, and that weighs about 2/3 less the weight of this bike. So when it didn't go up straight away, I thought there was a problem with the stand. Other places I've noticed it was in tight technical sections where I needed to manhandle the bike around. Here you see me sneaking up an off-camber section. Doesn't look that sketchy on camera, but it was slick, and I was just using the low end to creep up it. Yeah, the weight of the bike here and lack of grip on the tyres for this kind of challenging technical work is highlighted. In the end, I just reverted to revving it up the main rut and then lifting it over the ledge at the top. Looks like a massive ordeal, doesn't it? But I actually really enjoy this kind of technical riding. And just for reference, here's how we got the Tenere up there. Tyre on the Tenere was knobby, but it was half worn.
Let's try and 1, 2, 3, and I'll spin the back wheel and we'll just try and spin it over that side. 1, 2, 3. Yep.
We probably wouldn't have been able to get the bike up here if there wasn't two of us. And it was from this point on that Aaron decided that he would be better off on the DR-Z4S for the day, so we swapped bikes until we had to head home on the motorway. Then he asked for his back. I did drop the bike a few times too, but I'm used to picking up bigger adventure bikes, so wasn't too bad to pick up. The frame on the DR-Z4S has a brand new design for this bike, and it's constructed using a twin spar design. So there's two pieces of steel that come down from the front headstock and go either side of the fuel tank. I like the chassis on the bike a lot, and I think the bike handles really well, but the way it's designed means the fuel tank sits between those two spars, and it has to be on the smaller side to fit in there. As far as capacity goes, it hasn't been enough for me to be out all day, and I'd find that I have to ride to my location for an hour and a half, and then fill up, and then ride, and then head home, and that would be enough for me to be out all day. So probably use, 1.5 to 2 tanks for a full day out. So when I'm out, I'm definitely thinking about how much fuel is in that tank and when I've got to fill up. Layout of all the components on the bike is great, and nothing gets in your way as you're moving around on it. That's how I know. The rear brake reservoir needs a cover because your boot rubs directly on it. There is a skid plate on the bottom of the frame, but it's really small and doesn't protect the frame rails at all. Frame is made of steel and it's got a decent ground clearance, and I never scraped it while I had it. Initially I thought the frame was definitely aluminium, but yeah, it's not. And I suppose this is one of the reasons the bike's on the heavier side. Subframe is made of aluminium though, so if you stack it and bend that, it can be replaced. Swing arm is also made of aluminium, and that's pretty common for dirt bikes like this. Turning circle is great on the bike, which is good for technical off-road work. I've done a few other videos on this bike, so if you're keen on it, maybe head over to my channel and check them out. I'll also leave a link to them in this video's description. I didn't show this in the first video, but what I'm doing now is just getting a baseline setting for the sag. So this is my sag scale, and then I've just connected it just up to the top there. And I've also got a remote there on the handlebars, so that when I sit on the bike or stand on it, I can see what my sag reading is. But I've got the wheel off the ground, so that I've got a baseline, so it's like a zero measurement. KYB suspension on this bike is excellent. I thought I wouldn't be able to get the rear preload set to my weight, but I could get it close to right with the stock spring. To adjust the preload on the rear shock, you need to get in the back here. I could twist this spring when I first started turning it with my hand, but after that I had to use this shock punch, and it took ages because it's a really tight place to get into. In the end, I'd worked my way up to the bigger hammer for speed. Both the front and rear suspension are very supple overall and can also handle the bigger hits really well too. Stock rebound is only a touch too slow, but you can easily dial it in a bit if you think it is, because the damping is adjustable front and back. And this is the first bike in a very long while that I haven't felt I needed to adjust the damping on the stock bike to get it feeling right. Top marks here, Suzuki, for this suspension. I like the skinny wheels and tyres on this bike, and I think they suit it well. When I'm riding around, I do enjoy picking lines and moving the bike around to get more traction on the terrain, and to me, this is what makes a ride fun. I think I like it because it gives me the sensation of riding fast without actually having to ride that fast, and this is a big plus in my eyes. Sure, I'm not going to be carrying as much speed as I would if I was on my enduro bike, but I don't always need to ride like that, especially on tighter public tracks where we need to think of other people. Both brakes are great on the bike, and ABS can be turned off for off-road riding, which is essential. Display on the bike is easy to read and use. Fuel gauge is fairly accurate, but could probably use a distance to empty figure in there. Road riders might miss a tacho, but I didn't. Menus are really intuitive, and you don't need a manual to understand them. You don't really need to change all the modes all the time, but it's fun to use them and experiment with them. I think I would miss them if I didn't have them on this bike. One thing bad, no USB charger up the front here, which sort of shocked me that it wasn't there. LED lights all round, and I really like that front headlight. While I had the bike, I didn't change much aside from taking the rubbers out of the foot pegs and increasing the preload on the rear spring. If I owned the bike, the things I'd change immediately would be the foot pegs to bigger ones. I'd add risers, and I'd change the rear spring so it sprung properly for my weight. I'd also remove the seat strap, and I might remove the pillion pegs if I was 100% I wasn't going to take anyone on the back. I'd also leave the stock tyres on because they have enough grip for me to ride all year round, and I like the durability of them. I've had a look over the Suzuki accessories for the bike, and if I was speccing the bike up, things I'd add at the time of purchase would be a bash plate to protect the frame and engine underneath, hand guards to protect my hands, although I might actually go for park busters, a rear rack, a DC socket to charge my phone, no idea why there's not a USB option though, and a front and rear disc guard. I usually comment on servicing in my final reviews, but Suzuki didn't supply a manual for the bike, and I can't get any additional information on the website for it, so I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so here's all my pros. I think this is a good looking bike with great build quality, and when you look at it, it doesn't have any bad angles. It's got very easy handling for on and off road. I like the quiet, trail-friendly exhaust. It's got excellent suspension, good turning circle, electronics that are fun to use, and it's very easy to ride all day. And here's my cons. Yep, 5-speed gearbox, small skid plate as standard underneath there. The rear brake reservoir is exposed. It's got a small fuel tank and the range is sort of limited. The bike's heavy, and of course, just mentioned this before, no USB charger.
Mate, you got to keep going straight.
I'm trying.
So after spending a good amount of time with the Suzuki DR-Z4S, here's my honest take. I think this bike sits in a really nice spot for me between my lightweight enduro bike and my big adventure bike. It's not so hardcore that it wears you out after a few hours, and it's not so soft that it feels underpowered or out of its depth off-road. If I owned one, I'd happily ride it all day on the trails without getting tired. It's predictable, confidence-inspiring, and it is genuinely fun to ride. The engine has enough character to stay enjoyable without being overwhelming. The suspension is excellent out the box, and the ergonomics keep you comfortable whether you're sitting or standing. As I said, I wouldn't change the tyres if I owned it because they suit it well, but other riders might want more assurance in more challenging conditions. I think mainly wet and boggy is where these tyres might hold it back. Would I buy one? Yeah, absolutely. If I wanted a bike that I could throw at almost anything, day in, day out, with minimal fuss and maximum enjoyment, the DR-Z4S would be right up there on my short list. If you like my videos, please give the video a like to help YouTube recommend it to others. It also really helps grow my channel too. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. That's it. Thanks for watching.